Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt that they were quietly saying goodbye without a word? Not because of farewell, but because something in them had begun to let go. If you've ever sat by the bedside of an aging loved one, you know this feeling. The stillness, the silence that speaks louder than words, the sense that time is slowing down or running out. And yet, nothing is said outright. There's no alarm, no fiebre na moment, just small things, barely noticeable, like the flicker of a candle in a quiet room. That's what today's video is about. The little things, the whispers before the silence. Because the truth is, most people don't recognize when someone they love is entering the last chapter. Not because they don't care, but because the signs don't shout. They whisper, softly, subtly, like autumn leaves falling one by one, unnoticed until the tree is bare. You might think it would be obvious. A sudden illness, a major medical event. But more often, the body and soul begin their farewell in silence, long before the end arrives. And if you're here now, listening, it may be because something in you already knows this, already senses a shift. Perhaps you've seen someone move a little slower, eat a little less, smile with eyes that seem somewhere else. And part of you wonders, is this just aging? Or is it something more? This video is not about fear. It's about awareness. It's about love, presence, and the quiet courage it takes to notice what others miss. So let me ask you something gently. Is there someone in your life whose light seems dimmer lately? Someone who used to laugh loudly, but now only smiles faintly? Someone who feels more like a memory in the making than a part of the present? If so, stay with me, because in the next few minutes, we will speak of things often left unspoken. We will uncover 5 subtle signs that may mean an elderly person is approaching their final journey. Not to cause worry, but to offer a lantern for the path, to help you see where love is needed most. You don't need a medical degree to notice these signs. You need something deeper, attentiveness, gentleness, and the willingness to slow down and truly see. Because what we're about to explore are not symptoms. They're signals from the body, from the spirit, and from life itself, saying, pay attention, be here, this moment matters. You won't find these signs written on the surface. They hide in routines, in silences, in changes so gradual they can go unnoticed for months, until one day they're all that remains. Some will break your heart, others will awaken it, and maybe, just maybe, hearing them now will give you the chance to hold someone's hand a little longer, to say what was left unsaid, to love with your whole heart while there's still time. So if you feel a weight in your chest right now, if your breath just deepened, that's okay. It means you're human. It means you care. And it means this message is for you. Stay with me, dear friend. In the next part of this video, we'll begin revealing the first of these 5 quiet signs. Each one, a small but powerful clue. Each one, a doorway to compassion, understanding, and peace. Let's walk through them together, slowly, tenderly, because sometimes the most important truths are the ones nobody told us to look for. And now we begin. Sign number 1, significant weight loss. Have you ever noticed how quietly things begin to disappear? Not with noise, but with absence. A favorite coat hanging just a little looser on the shoulders. A wedding ring that suddenly slips off too easily. The familiar creak of the kitchen chair, now met with less weight, less presence. This is how it begins. Not with drama, but with a whisper. You see, the body doesn't always cry out. Sometimes it simply fades gently like dusk softening into night. And weight loss in old age isn't just a number on a scale. It's a message, but one that often arrives in silence. You might not notice it right away. It could be as simple as a grandmother saying, "I'm not very hungry today," or a grandfather quietly pushing away half his meal, smiling as if to say, "That's enough for me." And you tell yourself, it's normal. Just age. Appetite changes. The stomach shrinks. Nothing to worry about. But the truth lives in the subtleties, in the way their clothes begin to hang, in the sudden lightness when you hug them, in the quiet sigh after a few steps. Not of pain, but of effort. This is not just about food. It's about life slowly withdrawing from the edges. Because when the body begins to let go of weight, it's often not by choice. It's not a diet. It's not discipline. It's something deeper, an invisible shift. Sometimes the taste of food fades first. Meals once loved no longer spark joy. Sometimes chewing feels like too much. Swallowing becomes a task. Other times, it's not about the mouth at all. It's the soul that grows tired, and the body simply follows. There is something hauntingly beautiful about watching someone age, but only if you're willing to truly see. Weight loss in the elderly is often dismissed, explained away with words like normal, expected, nothing serious. But what if it is serious? What if the body is not just changing, but preparing to rest, to release, to return? The skin grows thinner. The bones become more visible, as if the body is trying to remind us, I've carried you far, but now I am getting tired. And sometimes when you look closely, you can sense it, a subtle retreat, a body that no longer wants to be filled, a life that is winding inward, like a leaf folding in before it falls. It is not always tragic, but is always sacred. Weight loss can be a turning point, not just of the body, but of time itself. A mark in the sand that says, something is changing. And when we ignore it, we miss a chance to listen more closely, to ask, what are you feeling lately, really? What does food taste like now? Do you still enjoy the things you used to? Are you tired more than before? We miss the chance to offer not just calories, but comfort, not just meals, but meaning. Maybe what they need most is not more food, but more presence. A warm hand holding theirs during dinner, an old song playing softly as they eat, a reminder that even if their appetite fades, our love does not. So if someone you love is losing weight quietly, steadily, don't just watch the numbers. Watch them. Watch the way they move, the way they speak, the way their energy comes and goes like waves on a quiet shore. Because this kind of weight loss is not just about the body. It's about the story the body is telling, sometimes for the last time. It's the story of letting go, of returning to simplicity, of softening into silence. And that story deserves to be heard, not with panic, but with reverence. So, dear listener, if you've seen this in someone you love, if your mother's favorite sweater now wraps too loosely around her frame, if your father's arms feel smaller than you remember, ask yourself, is this just aging, or is it the beginning of goodbye? Not every weight loss is a warning, but when it is a gentle knock on the door of your awareness. And if you answer that knock with love, you may find something unexpected, a chance to be more present, more tender, more human. We still have 3 more signs to explore. And the last, perhaps the most often missed, maybe the very one that could change how you show up for the people who mean the most. Stay with me. We're not just learning how to recognize endings. We're learning how to honor them with open eyes and an open heart. Sign number 2, constant fatigue and weakness. There's a kind of tiredness that no sleep can fix, a heaviness that doesn't come from the body alone, but from somewhere deeper, a quiet, hidden place within. If you've ever sat beside someone in their later years, you may have seen it. They wake slowly, not just because their body is stiff, but because the very act of waking feels too heavy. Their movements grow slower, smaller, more careful, as if every gesture costs something, as if their limbs no longer belong to them entirely. It's tempting to say, they're just getting older. And yes, age brings its own form of slowness. But this is different. This is not just the body slowing down. It's the body letting go. Fatigue, the kind that lingers all day, is often a whisper from a body, a quiet surrender. You may notice it in the way they sit. Not upright, but folded. Not alert, but sinking. They close their eyes more often. Not out of sleepiness, but because the world feels too bright, too loud, too much. You offer them help to stand, and they accept it without protest. Once, they would have insisted on doing it themselves. But now, they don't fight the weakness. They allow it. That is a sign, not just of the body changing, but of the soul preparing. There's a kind of wisdom in this fatigue. It's not laziness. It's not defeat. It's nature's way of saying, you have walked far enough for today. Rest now. And yet, It can be heartbreaking to witness. A once vibrant spirit, now needing a chair halfway down the hallway. Someone who used to bustle in the kitchen, now needing help to lift the kettle. There's grief in these small changes. For them, for you. But hidden beneath this sorrow is something deeply human. When strength fades, tenderness has room to grow. A quiet walk to the window becomes an act of courage. A shared moment, simply holding hands, feels more powerful than words. Fatigue is not just tiredness. It is the body's way of turning inward, of focusing on the essentials. The heart beats slower. The muscles loosen their grip. Even the voice softens. And if we are wise, we meet this change not with resistance, but with reverence, because this weakness, this weariness, is sacred in its own way. It teaches us to be gentler, to slow down, not out of impatience, but out of love. It reminds us that we are not meant to be strong forever, only long enough to pass on what matters. And sometimes, the deepest strength is knowing when to rest. If someone you love is growing tired more often, needing more naps, fewer conversations, if they seem like they're carrying an invisible weight, don't rush them. Don't tell them to try harder. Just sit with them. Let the silence be your language. Let your presence be their pillow. Because sometimes the most healing thing we can offer is not a solution, but stillness. You might find that in these quiet hours, when the body is too tired to pretend. Truth comes easier. They may begin to say things they've held in for years, or they may simply sit in silence. And that too will speak volumes. Ask yourself, when was the last time you looked into their eyes? Not with worry, but with wonder? When was the last time you walked at their pace? Not out of obligation, but out of love. There's a rhythm to aging. And in this stage, that rhythm slows, becomes more like a lullaby than a march. You can fight it, or you can listen. Lean into it. Because if you listen closely, fatigue doesn't sound like an ending. It sounds like a beginning of rest, of peace, of release. It is the soft voice of the body saying, I have done enough. Now let me be still. This is not a call to give up. It's a call to lean in, to hold them a little longer, to cherish the slowness, to honor the hush that comes before the final breath. And perhaps most of all, to ask yourself, what would I do differently if I knew this tiredness was not just from today, but from a lifetime? That question may open something in you. A new way of being, a new way of loving. We've only just begun uncovering the signs. And the fourth, the one many miss, may be the most important of all. Stay with me, because this isn't just about recognizing the end. It's about making every moment that remains a little softer, a little brighter, and a little more sacred. 3. Confusion and withdrawal. When the world begins to fade inward, there comes a moment in some people's lives when the outside world no longer feels like home. You might notice it in a look, a distant gaze across a familiar room, as if the person is seeing something that isn't there, or perhaps someone who once was. They pause mid-sentence, forget the word for window or daughter, or today, then they smile softly, as if letting the moment pass is easier than chasing it. This is not the forgetfulness of misplacing keys. This is something quieter, heavier. It is the mind beginning to fold in on itself, not out of fear, but from sheer exhaustion. When a person begins to detach, it doesn't always look like illness. It often looks like peace. Too much peace. They stop asking questions, stop participating in conversations they once loved. They sit by the window for long stretches, watching the wind move through trees, saying nothing. And if you call their name, they answer, but sometimes with a delay, as though the signal had to travel a little farther now. Through unfamiliar fog, some might call it confusion, others withdrawal, but perhaps it is neither. Perhaps it is a quiet preparation, a soft turning inward, like a tide pulling away from the shore, without panic, without sound. Because the truth is, the mind, just like the body, knows when to begin its farewell. Have you ever watched someone search for a name, one they've said 1,000 times before, only to find that it slips away, like a dream upon waking? Or seen them drift off mid-thought, as though walking into a room and forgetting why? It is in these moments, these small, unspoken fractures, that the soul begins to write its final chapter. You may feel tempted to remind them, to correct, to say, no, today is Tuesday, or that's your grandson's name, remember? But what if remembering isn't the point anymore? What if in these quiet gaps, there's a kind of grace? When someone withdraws, they aren't turning away from you. They are turning toward something else, something only they can see. You might notice they stop seeking company, that the noise of the television becomes too much. That laughter, once so welcome, now feels jarring. Instead, they sit in silence, not unhappy, just apart. It's not personal. It's not rejection. It's transition. And if you let go of the urge to pull them back, you might find a deeper way to connect. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is sit beside them and not say a word, to be their anchor, even when their mind is drifting, to accept that they are not lost. They're just somewhere else now, somewhere softer. There's a sacred stillness in this stage, a sense that the person is preparing, not for death, but for release. They may smile at memories that only they can see. They may cry suddenly, without knowing why. And you may feel helpless, unsure of how to help, what to say, how to hold them when their mind is slipping away. But sometimes holding is not with arms. It's with presence, with patience, with allowing them to be exactly as they are. No fixing, no correcting, just love. Because when the light begins to dim, the shadows grow long, but they're also beautiful. In those shadows, you might find a rare kind of truth, the purest version of the soul, no longer performing, no longer explaining, just being. You may miss who they were, their sharpness, their laughter, the quick wit or the long talks. But what remains, what lingers, is their essence. And if you listen not with your ears, but with your heart, you'll still hear them, still feel them. Because even in confusion, there is presence. Even in silence, there is connection. Even in withdrawal, there is love. So if you're watching someone you care about slowly retreat, don't rush them back into your world. Step into theirs, even if it's quieter, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it breaks your heart. Because what they need now is not to be reminded of who they were, but to be accepted for who they are in this tender, fleeting moment. And maybe that's the greatest gift we can give one another, to be seen, to be held, even when we're no longer fully here. So I ask you gently, have you noticed someone pulling away, saying less, being less present in the ways they used to be? If so, look closer, not with worry, but with wonder. They may be on a journey that none of us fully understand, but all of us will one day take. And as we move forward, we will uncover more signs, each one a light, guiding us through the unspoken. The fourth sign, one of the most overlooked, carries with it a message that many never hear in time. But you are here, listening. So stay with me, because in the silence between words, in the space between breaths, there's still so much to feel, so much to understand, so much to love. Sign number 4, frequent infections and poor healing. There comes a time in the life of the body when it stops trying to fight, not because it has given up, but because it is choosing peace over battle. You see, the human body, in its prime, is a warrior. It defends, it repairs, it heals. A simple scratch, a seasonal cold, a minor bruise. These were once nothing, gone in days, forgotten in weeks. But in the twilight years, even the smallest wounds begin to linger. A cough lasts longer than it used to. A bruise spreads wider, turns darker, refuses to fade. And somewhere in that quiet shift, the body is whispering, I'm not what I once was. You might notice it in little things. A loved one who seems to always have a tissue nearby. A small sore on the leg that stays open week after week. A recurring fever, a flushed face, a sudden chill. Things that seem ordinary until they become routine. This is where the fourth sign reveals itself. Frequent infections and slow healing. And though it might seem clinical, it is anything but. Because what's really happening is that the body is slowly closing its gates. The immune system, that invisible army, is no longer marching to war at every threat. It grows quieter, slower, more selective. And that silence, is not weakness. It is transition. When healing slows, it means the body is using its remaining energy, not to fix, but to preserve, not to build, but to prepare. You may not see this right away. You may think it's just another cold. You may say, they've always been prone to infections. And maybe that's true, but look again. Does the recovery take longer than before? Do the antibiotics seem to help? Less and less. Are there new skin marks, irritations, or sores that don't quite fade? These aren't just medical signs. They're emotional ones too, because with each infection that lingers, a little part of their independence fades. They might stop going outside as often, avoid certain foods, sleep more, talk less. They begin to pull inward, like a flower at dusk closing its petals, not in fear, but in readiness. And what do we as loved ones do with this? We want to fix. We want to cure. We want them back to how they were before. But sometimes, what's needed is not a cure, but comfort. When a parent or grandparent begins to get sick more often, it may not be about what's wrong. It may be about where they are in their journey. And that changes everything. Because if you see this sign not as a failure, but as a message, you can respond with tenderness instead of panic. You can stop chasing perfect health and start offering perfect presence. You can say, it's okay to rest. It's okay to feel tired. I'm here. I see you. I'm not going anywhere. There's deep power in that. Not every infection needs a hospital bed. Some simply need a warm blanket, a quiet room, and someone to sit beside them without trying to fix what cannot be fixed. Because sometimes healing is not about the body. It's about the spirit. And as the body slows its healing, the heart often opens wider. There are conversations to be had, laughter to share, stories to pass down, not despite the illness, but because of it. The slowness of healing invites us to pause, to notice, to cherish. There is wisdom in a wound that will not close. It teaches us how to stay, how to witness, how to love without conditions. So if you've noticed the signs, recurring fevers, fragile skin, persistent coughs, or wounds that refuse to fade, don't look away. Don't rush to cover them. Look closer, because behind every mark on their skin, there may be a moment waiting for connection, for kindness, for quiet recognition. Let their slower healing teach you how to slow down too, how to be gentle, how to listen for the words they no longer say out loud. Ask yourself, what is this moment asking of me? How can I show love, not through doing, but through being? Because one day, you will look back on this time, and it won't be the medication you remember. It will be the way their hand felt in yours, the way the light fell across their face, the way you sat side by side, and simply breathed together. This is the beauty hidden in fragility, the sacredness of being close. When someone begins to step away, there is one more sign left to explore, and perhaps is the most tender of them all. Stay with me, because these aren't just signs of the body's decline. They're invitations to deepen your love, to soften your voice, to be present fully while there is still time. Sign number 5, changes in breathing and circulation. There are sounds we never forget. The hush of waves against the shore, the creak of an old wooden floor, the breath of someone we love, steady, soft, alive. And then, one day, something shifts. Not all at once. Just a small pause between breaths, a rhythm that feels unfamiliar, a silence that lasts a second too long. At first, it seems like nothing. You tell yourself, they're just tired. It's the weather, maybe a cold. But deep down, in that quiet space where intuition whispers, you feel it. Breath, the most basic sign of life, begins to change. It becomes shallower, slower, sometimes quick and uneven, like a song that no longer follows its melody. You might notice the way they breathe through their mouth now, as if pulling air takes more effort, or how they pause mid-sentence, not because they've forgotten, but because their lungs are asking for time. And then there are the hands. Fingers once warm, now cool to the touch, toes turning pale or slightly blue, as if the body is slowly pulling back from its outer edges, returning inward. You see, when circulation changes, when the heart no longer pumps with the same strength, The body begins to prioritize. Blood flows to the organs that matter most. The hands, the feet, the skin, they're no longer first in line. It's not dramatic. It's not loud, but it is sacred. This, too, is the language of the body. A quiet message that says, I am preparing. Sometimes you'll notice it in their posture, how they prop themselves up with pillows, preferring not to lie flat, because lying down makes the breath feel heavier, as if even gravity has become too much. And you start to hear new sounds, a faint gurgle in the chest, a soft wheeze, a rhythm that dances between effort and stillness. For the one breathing this way, it can feel like climbing a hill that never ends. They may not speak of it. They may smile and say, I'm fine. But their body tells a different story. It tells of tired lungs, of a heart that has beaten through decades of joy and pain, and now longs to rest. And yet, in these moments, in the change of breath, the coolness of skin, the slowing of circulation, there is beauty, a sacred stillness, a soft curtain being drawn, a gentle unthreading from this world. If you're present, if you dare to be still with them, you may notice that something else arrives in the room. Peace, not because we are ready, but because the body is. This doesn't mean giving up. It means listening deeply. It means adjusting the room. Cooler air, soft lighting, silence. It means sitting close, holding a cool hand in both of yours, letting them feel that even as their body lets go, your love holds on. If you notice their breath changing, don't rush to fix. Don't panic. Just be there. Because in these quiet shifts, there is often no need for words, only presence. You may find that these final rhythms, though fragile, hold a power beyond anything you've known. They carry the weight of a life lived. They echo with everything that's ever been felt but unspoken. Ask yourself, when was the last time you simply breathed with someone? Not to speak, not to fix, but to be. That's what they need now. Not answers, not advice, just your breath, your warmth, your stillness beside theirs. And if the room grows quiet, if the breath slows, know that you are witnessing something sacred. Not the end, but the return of breath to silence, of pulse to peace. We are nearing the heart of this journey. And though these signs are hard to face, they are not here to frighten you. They are here to prepare you. Because when we recognize what the body is telling us, we can answer not with fear, but with love. In the final chapter, we don't need to speak loudly. We only need to listen. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll discover the sign most often missed, the one that speaks not through the body, but through the soul itself. Let's keep walking together. There's still more to see. Death is not the end. It is a transition, a doorway between worlds. Not a full stop, but a gentle turning of the page. And those who are present in that sacred moment, they're not just witnesses. They become guides, lantern bearers in the twilight. To sit beside someone as they prepare to leave this world is not a burden. It is a quiet honor. It is an invitation to love without needing words. To hold a hand not for comfort alone, but to remind a soul you are not going alone. There is still time. Time to embrace. Time to forgive yourself and them. Time to say, I'm here, even if you can't say anything more. And yes, even time to sit in silence. Because in that silence, where breath is fragile and the heart speaks without sound, love echoes the loudest. And maybe that's what this life was always about. Not how long we stayed, but how deeply we were felt. Not how many words we said, but how wholly we listened. Not how we held on, but how gently we let go. If this video touched something in your soul, if it made you remember, or weep, or breathe a little slower, then stay with us. Subscribe, not for algorithms, but for what comes next, because more is coming. More about life, about goodbye, about the quiet strength it takes to simply be there. Until then, be kind to yourself, be present with those you love, and remember, even in stillness, love speaks the loudest.